بسم الله وبه بدينا وعبدنا غيره شقينا حبذا رب حبدينا اللهم صل على محمد كل ذكر الغافرين وصل على محمد كل غفلان ذكر الغافلين. The main instigators of the Battle of Khandaq discussed yesterday, the Banu Nadir tribe which had been expelled from Medina towards Khaybar, and Allah had saved the Muslims at the Battle of Khaybar and the Battle of Khandaq. But the Jews of Nadir did not give up, so they made another plan with the Ghaṭfān to attack the Muslims again. So this time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, instead of waiting to be attacked, he decided to attack the Jews who were based at a place called Khaybar before they could join with the Ghaṭfān to attack the Muslims again. And a principle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reliance upon Allah, but using the worldly means. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not call for the largest possible army to attack the Jews. Only those who previously had gone with him to Ḥudaybiyah, those 1,400. Only those, because they had proven that was a great test of their faith, to go right into Makkah, that we could go for Umrah under circumstances. So those 1,400 who went and they preached to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had proven themselves. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, instead of calling for a large army, he announced only those 1,400, only they are allowed to come with me to Khaybar, the Jewish stronghold. So Khaybar was not one single fort, but it was a series of fortresses. One fort, another fort, with all their plantations in between. Each one fell to the Muslims, except for the last one, which was led by Marhab, a great Jewish warrior. And despite several attempts, the fortress of Marhab would not fall. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam announced that the next morning he would be giving the flag, his flag, the flag of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to someone who loves Allah and His Rasūl sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And everybody was hoping it would be him. In the morning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Ḥalī bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, but Ali radiallahu anhu excused himself that his eyes were infected. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam applied his saliva to the eye of Ali radiallahu anhu, and immediately he was cured. He took the flag of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the last Jewish fortress was conquered, and the Jews surrendered. Very interesting incident during the Battle of Khaybar was that a slave, shepherd belonging to the Jews, was looking after the sheep or the goats of the Jews, came across the Muslims, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam invited him to Islam. And he was very impressed, and he said, but what do I do about this sheep and his goats? Look at his integrity and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He never thought that, you know what, we're at war now and I can just take this, and it's like some people say, no, never mind, it's just Jews. There's no such thing like that. Our dealings must be fair and square, whether it's with Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, atheist, whatever it is. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, let them free, Allah will guide them back to their master, and this is what happened. So this is the honesty which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us. And this man who had just embraced Islam, he took part in the battle, and he became martyred. Within a few moments, a few hours, just a great part of the day had not passed by. No time of Salah had entered and passed that Salah became compulsory upon him. He died, he became Muslim, and he died without having performed any Salah. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I can see his two hurs, the ladies of Jannah, with him now, his wife from Jannah. I can see him with them. Based solely on his sincerity, he done no deed in Islam, not even a salah, but he had been accepted in the eyes and the court of Allah. The terms also regarding fair dealings is that half the crops of the Jews would now be given as tribute to the Muslims as punishment for their conspiracies against Islam. And the way the Muslims did it is that every year the representative of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go and he would divide the crops of the Jews 50-50 as equal as he could, but then he would let the Jews choose which one do you want to keep for you and which pile do you want to send to Medina. So obviously that would be as fair way as possible. So this is great emphasis you see in the lives of the Sahaba and the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fair dealings even with your enemy. Unfortunately at Khaybar the Jews were not so fair with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A Jewish woman invited Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to a meal. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted this, and then as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was engaged in the meal, Jibreel alayhi salam informed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, although he had already bitten into it, that this is poisoned, the food is poisoned. And then years later, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in his final moments, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam remarked, I can feel the effects of that poison now harming me. So that was in short the battle of Khaybar, which marked the final end of the Jewish power in Arabia. The next major engagement was the Battle of Muʿtah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had sent his ambassador to the Roman governor who had killed the ambassador of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who had martyred the ambassador of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even in the ancient world and up till today, to kill an ambassador is not something small and to be taken lightly. And you could say, now it's only one man, if we're going to battle now, then even more people will be killed, let's just overlook it. The bigger picture is this, that throughout the world, throughout all times, an ambassador is a respected person who's, even if you're at war with each other, you respect the life and the message of the ambassador. And the ambassador embodies within himself the dignity and the honor and the respect of the country that he represents. So killing the ambassador of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is an insult to all the Muslims, an insult to Islam, an attack upon the personality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, and also an indication that we can't live in peace with each other. So we can't even have that basic dignity of respecting the ambassador. Our life and our peace, our security is not going to be intact. The Romans are something that has to be dealt with. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again took the initiative. He did not personally take part, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent the Muslim army to attack the Romans at Muʿtah, which is in Jordan today. It was the army was under the command of Zayd bin Haritha radiallahu anhu, and the Muslims faced severe losses. Zayd radiallahu anhu, he became martyred in the battle. Until then, Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu, the same man who had been on the side of the Quraysh at the Battle of Uhud and had caused the Muslims so much losses, and now in the interim accepted Islam, became a great Muslim, and he took command of the Muslims at Muʿtah, he managed to save the situation, not gain victory, but save the situation, and allowed the Muslims to retreat back to Medina. And the Muslims had never retreated before this, so when they came to Medina, the people of Medina called them Farareen, that you are people who have fled, and to flee from the battle is a major sin, and they mocked them and they despised them. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, they are Karareen, people who are going but with the intention of returning, which is entirely permissible in Islam. And Khalid bin Walid radhiyallahu anhu received the title from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of Sayf min Suyufillah, or Sayfullah, a sword from amongst the swords of Allah. And whichever battle Khalid bin Walid radhiyallahu anhu would go in there after, the Muslims would gain victory. We even mention in one particular incident that Khalid radhiyallahu anhu had a habit. He took a hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he placed it in his turban or his cap. And in one battle, when his headgear fell to the ground, the Muslims faced defeat. And as he picked it up and he placed it on his head again, the Muslims again started winning. And when Khalid bin Walid radhiyallahu anhu was in his final moments, he expressed great disappointment that, like so much other Sahaba, the great honor to be martyred in Islam. He said every battle that he went into, not so much as to gain victory, but the greatest victory is to be a martyr in the eyes of Allah, and that victory he couldn't achieve, whereas he had so many wounds. Every part of his body there was some wound, but he could never get martyred. And the person who was with him said, but you are the sword of Allah. How can the sword of Allah be broken? If the sword of Allah had to be broken, and then the kuffar would be mocking us. That's why Allah could never allow his sword to be broken. But of special mention, besides the great conquest which Khalid bin Walid radhiyallahu anhu achieved in Syria, Iraq, those places, but what must also be mentioned in particular is that when Abu Bakr al-Anhu became Khalifa and many tribes left Islam, and Islam almost faced complete collapse. It seemed like Islam just came into this world and was about to leave this world, because many tribes, majority of the tribes, they left Islam. And Khalid bin Walid radhiyallahu anhu was very instrumental as the sword of Allah at that time to save our deen for us. May Allah be pleased with him. Subhanallah bihamdihi.